What's up guys, Sean here, and today we're going to talk about the Jussie Smollett case. On January 29th of this year, Empire actor Jussie Smollett reported that he was the victim of a vicious, racist, and homophobic hate crime. According to him, he got hungry at around 2 in the morning and he walked to Subway where he ordered a sandwich. On his way back, in -20 wind chill weather by the way, he was approached by two men. The men said something to the effect of, "You're that Empire, slur for gay people, slur for black people," and then proceeded to assault him. During the assault, Jussie fought back. He punched one of the guys back in the face because, Jussie's a very strong person.
Number 3, I want them to see that I fought back. And I want a little gay boy who might watch this to see that I fought back. And it does not take anything away from people that are not able to do that. But I fought back. They ran off. I didn't.
But the second cowardly person caught him from behind and was able to get a rope around his neck before they took off running.
I mean, who says Empire, this MAGA country, ties a noose around your neck and pours bleach on you? And this is just a friendly fight?
Jussie, who did not drop his Subway sandwich during the entire altercation, then went home, talked to his manager, and waited 45 minutes before he called the police. When the police showed up, he still had the rope around his neck.
I kept the clothes on. I kept the rope.
So you had the rope on the entire time?
I mean, it wasn't like wrapped around, but yeah, it was around because I wanted them to see. I wanted them to see what this was.
And then he proceeded to report the crime to the police as described. The media immediately ran with the story of people yelling MAGA country while committing a racist and homophobic hate crime. And despite numerous blatantly obvious flaws in Jussie Smollett's story, the media never bothered to treat it with any skepticism, and they reported it as if it was gospel. They then shamed people for questioning the story.
I respect too much the people who I am now one of those people who have been attacked in any way. You do such a disservice when you lie about things like this.
Some of the flaws in this story that should have been picked up on by the media were that there were two Trump supporters hanging out in the gay district of Chicago at 2 in the morning during a polar vortex. They also coincidentally had bleach on them and rope. And they were also coincidentally big fans of the show Empire, or very aware of the show Empire, so much so that they would recognize an actor from Empire even though he would be bundled up in winter clothing. So for this story to work, these guys would have had to been more capable of recognizing a random celebrity than his biggest fans would have been in that same situation, and angry enough, racist enough, and homophobic enough to then immediately, upon recognizing him, commit a racist hate crime against that actor. And once again, it was a polar vortex, so the wind chill temperatures in Chicago at that time and on that day were -20. Now, of course, we now know that the Jussie Smollett story just isn't true. The two people out that night weren't white, racist Trump supporters. They were two Nigerian guys that Jussie Smollett knew. One of them acted as his personal trainer for a while. They were both extras on the show Empire, and police are now operating under the assumption that Jussie Smollett paid these guys in order to orchestrate this hate crime against himself to boost his own profile. Now look, the Jussie Smollett case is going to play out the way it's going to play out, whether that ends up being some kind of jail time, or way more likely a plea bargain, probation, and a really, really good public apology, because the public deserves an apology for this. But that's going to be determined somewhere down the line. But there are 3 things that we should talk about now because I find them really important. The first is the diligent work of the Chicago PD. The second is how the media reported it. And the third is what Jussie Smollett was thinking and what his actions show about him as a person. Now, I want to start with the Chicago PD because they deserve all the credit in the world for the way they handled this investigation. And honestly, they were being attacked a lot by people on my side of the aisle because of the way that they handled this investigation, and I'm going to show you why that was incorrect. At some point during the course of the investigation, the Chicago PD were suspicious of Jussie Smollett. They asked him to turn over his cell phone, he refused. Then they asked for his cell phone records, and he turned over redacted records from his call logs. The police then shifted the focus of the investigation to those redacted portions of the call logs, and that's how they found the two Nigerian suspects. During the course of that investigation, they figured out that these two Nigerian suspects bought the rope that was strung around Jussie Smollett's neck. Now, at this time, the Chicago PD consistently and publicly denied that they were investigating Smollett, and they claimed over and over again in the media that they were treating Smollett as the victim and not as a perpetrator. And there's a very good reason why they maintain that public position. You see, what was unknown to all of us, and especially those in the skeptical portion of the media, the two suspects that the police were targeting were in Nigeria at the time that the police were investigating it. Meaning, if there was any suspicion cast upon these two people, there was a chance that they would not have returned from Nigeria. Remember, the police stopped these two suspects at the airport. While a lot of people assume that the Chicago PD was being weak and politically correct, not calling this a potential hate crime hoax publicly in the media, they actually had a legitimate policing reason to do so. The suspects might not have returned to the United States of America, and then we would have never known whether or not Jussie Smollett perpetrated this hoax or not. So in my opinion, the Chicago PD in this story did an excellent job, and they are of course the unsung heroes of the story, because their police work is what led to the evidence being turned against Jussie Smollett. You see, the Chicago PD played it absolutely perfectly. They started by building a case against the two Nigerians, proving that they had bleach, proving that they bought the rope, proving that they were there at the scene of the crime at the time of the crime. Once they built the case against the two Nigerians, the interrogation could have only went one of two ways. Either the Nigerians were going to acknowledge that they in fact did do the crime against Jussie Smollett, which didn't make any sense, or they were going to provide evidence to show that Smollett paid them to participate in this hoax. So yeah, excellent job, Chicago PD. Of course, the media is terrible. Less than 10 days after the Covington story blew up in their face and turned out to be the exact opposite of how they reported it, they went along with the Jussie Smollett case despite the fact that it was full of holes. This was also in the same month as the Jasmine Barnes story, which is another story that the media jumped to the conclusion that it was a hate crime or maybe a Trump supporter when there was no evidence of that. Essentially, the media proved what we already know. They're so anti-Trump, they will literally accept anything that is anti-Trump on face value. And finally, there's Jussie Smollett himself, who is now a symbol of the victim culture in our country. People's desperation to be victims, so then they can become the heroes in the story that is their life.
I will never be the man that this did not happen to. I am forever changed. And I don't subscribe to the idea that everything happens for a reason, but I do subscribe to the idea that we have the right and the responsibility to make something meaningful out of the things that happen to us, good and bad.
Look, I don't know what's going on in this guy's head. I don't know what makes somebody so deranged and angry at who's president that they stage a hate crime against themselves.
Why do you think you were targeted?
I can just assume, I come really, really hard against 45. I come really, really hard against his administration.
I've heard reports that he was worried he was about to be written off his show Empire. I don't know if that's true. 20th Century Fox has actually denied that that is true. Maybe Jussie didn't understand the consequences of his actions, and for him, he just saw this as a publicity stunt. Or maybe, like many people in this country, he's so desperate for a cause, he's so desperate for something to overcome that he had to manufacture it. I mean, if you watch his Good Morning America interview, you can see that he's trying to inspire gay people in the future to be strong.
I just want young people, young members of the LGBTQ community, young black children to know how strong that they are, to know the power that they hold in their little pinky.
But he seems to not know what the most important part about being somebody who inspires others is, and that's being somebody that other people can aspire to be. Not being a liar, being genuine, leading by example, not manufacturing a crisis so that then you can bring in the solution. Overall, I'm not happy with this story. Don't get me wrong, I'm not one of these people who are like, I need Jussie Smollett's story to be true because it's going to cast doubt on all the real hate crime victims out there. We all know that there are actual hate crimes, and we all know that skepticism of this blatantly obvious hoax is not going to make us say that other things that aren't so obvious or other things that have evidence indicating that they're real are hoaxes. That's just another myth perpetuated by the media to cover their own asses. I also don't care about Jussie Smollett. I didn't know who he was before this, and I would have been way happier never knowing who he was. And I'm glad that this narrative blew up in his face, and he's going to have to live with the consequences of his actions. But I do wish that this never happened. I wish that Jussie had better judgment and would have decided not to do this. I wish that the media would have done their jobs and treated this with the skepticism that it deserved. And most importantly, I wish that the left would stop assuming that people who disagree with them on politics are racist, sexist, bigot, homophobe, evil people. Anyway, that's all I really have for you guys today. Let me know what you think about the Jussie Smollett case down in the comments. If you like this video, then please show me by leaving a like. You can subscribe for more content. Follow me on all my social medias, which includes Twitter, by the way. You can support me via one-time donations on PayPal, or you can support me monthly on Patreon or Subscribestar. This has been me breaking down the Jussie Smollett case. Till next time.